Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive.
Always.
Awesome. So today we're tackling something pretty profound and something that I think a lot of people can relate to, even if they haven't quite put a name to it yet. We're talking about generational trauma.
Yeah, it's one of those things that once you start to understand it, you start seeing it everywhere.
Right. And to guide us on this journey, we're going to be drawing on a really powerful video by Tasha Strong from her Why Hate Me TV series. Have you seen her work before?
I have, yeah. She's got such a knack for taking complex topics and making them accessible, and that's exactly what she does with generational trauma.
It's so important because this is something that can affect us all in ways we might not even realize. It can shape our well-being, our relationships, even our outlook on the world.
Absolutely. And, before we jump into the nitty-gritty, I think it's worth taking a moment to really define what we mean by generational trauma, because it's not just about, knowing your family history. It goes much deeper than that.
For sure. So how does Tasha Strong define it?
Well, she uses this really powerful analogy. She compares generational trauma to an invisible chain. This chain that gets passed down through families, generation after generation, carrying with it the weight of their past pain.
Wow, an invisible chain. That's such a striking image.
Yeah.
And it immediately makes me think about how that weight can feel, like almost like we're carrying burdens that we didn't sign up for.
Exactly. And it's not just about remembering what happened to our ancestors. It's about the way those experiences, like war, discrimination, displacement, even just systemic poverty, how those experiences leave a lasting impact on families long after the events themselves have passed.
So we're not just talking about memories. We're talking about something that
Yeah.
gets woven into the very fabric of a family,
Yeah.
like in their DNA almost.
Right. And that's where things get really interesting because we start to see how those inherited burdens can shape not just an individual's worldview, but also the way they interact with the world, the choices they make, even generations later.
It's mind-blowing. It's almost like a ripple effect, like a stone thrown into a pond and the ripples keep spreading outwards. But I imagine this can manifest in some pretty serious ways, right? It's not all just like subtle nuances in personality.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about real, tangible consequences here. And we see it in a whole range of physical and mental health issues. Higher rates of depression, anxiety, PTSD, even chronic illnesses.
It's almost like our bodies are keeping score, even if our conscious minds haven't fully processed those past traumas. That's pretty heavy.
It is. And another area where generational trauma can really show up is in our relationships.
And that makes sense. It's like, how could it not affect how we connect with others? I mean, if you grow up surrounded by, say, unhealthy communication patterns or witnessing a lack of emotional intimacy, those things are bound to influence your own relationships, right?
100%. We might find ourselves recreating the same dysfunctional patterns we witnessed growing up, even if we swore up and down that we'd never be like our parents. It's like those patterns become ingrained in us, almost like a default setting.
Right, like a blueprint for how relationships
Yeah.
should be. So this might look like, what, having difficulty trusting others, pushing people away when they get too close, maybe constantly seeking validation from outside sources.
All of that, yeah. And it can become this really painful cycle where we keep repeating the same mistake, hurting ourselves and others in the process. It can feel really hopeless at times.
Absolutely. But thankfully, and I love this about Tasha Strong's approach, she doesn't just leave us hanging in that sense of despair. She actually lays out a path toward healing. And the first step, she says, is recognition. So what does that mean exactly?
Well, I think a lot of people get tripped up here because they think recognition is simply about acknowledging that, yes, this trauma exists, and that's part of it, of course, but it's not the whole story.
So there's more to it than just saying, yep, my family's been through some stuff, got it.
Right. Because the real power comes from having the courage to confront that trauma, to really look